Welcome to Celestial You. Hi everybody, I am finally ready to tell you what's going to happen in 2024. So this prediction is a long time coming, I know, but the thing you have to realize is that the predictions that I do are going to be based off of the Lunar New Year. And so that Lunar New Year, the Chinese New Year, is plotted sometime between like January or February, right? So this Lunar New Year that I've charted is February 9th. Okay, that's why I haven't come out with this prediction. The Gregorian calendar does not sync up with the cosmos. That is why you would rather feel like being in your pajamas than going to a New Year's Eve party, right? Especially right now that we're all in sync with the cycles. It just doesn't feel right. Well, the real New Year is in spring. This Gregorian calendar is only here to kind of throw us off of our cycles, and so we're expected to plan our new year before we've had time to rest and digest and experience winter, right? So in this prediction, I'm going to be going over not only the prediction for the United States, but I'm also going to do the world prediction, and I'm going to break this up into high vibe, low vibe. And the reason I'm going to break it up that way is because right now in humanity, we're going through a split timeline. And between the old earth and the new earth, people are choosing either to embody a higher vibration and a higher timeline, or just to allow the default settings of the earth to play out, which is the lower timeline, the old earth. Right? And so as you see some of these predictions that I'm going to make about the United States and the world on the political scale and things like that, there's going to be a higher timeline where there's great advancement, and there's going to be a lower timeline which plays out more of the three-dimensional realities. And based on the timelines you choose and the embodiment of the energies that you choose in your life, you're going to either experience more of the high vibe or less of the high vibe. And how that plays out is if you are higher vibrational, what ends up happening is the lower vibrational people in your life will just simply cease to be a part of your life. So I want you to listen to these predictions, but I want you to also keep in mind that the type of world that you are in is directly related to the inner work that you're doing, because as within, so without, as above, so below. Those are the Hermetic principles telling us that our reality is a projection of our inner self and our inner work. So even though some of these aspects are unsavory, I wouldn't think necessarily that that's going to show up in your life. In fact, the more inner work that you do, the more of the high vibrational timelines you can anchor in. And that really even means that people around you are going to be more high vibrational. So with that said, I'm going to jump into the United States 2024 prediction starting in February to next January, February, next Lunar New Year. And this will allow you to prepare for what's happening in the United States. Okay, so here's the deal about 2024. Now in 2023, the vibration of humanity was the war vibration of 150 out of 1,000. This is on the vibrational revelation scale, which you can find at holistic.com or the holistic.inc YouTube channel. The vibration of 150 is the vibration of boundaries setting, war, and anger. So that was 2023, y'all. And as we go into 2024, our vibration does eventually pick up. If you want to know more about this, you can go check out Holistic and you can look at their prediction for 2024. But basically, we're going to go from the war vibration up to about 185 by the end of the year. And the vibration of 175 is the vibration of pride. So you can see we're stepping up. So before, when we were in COVID times, we were at the vibration of fear, which is 100. Then we went to anger. Now we're going to pride, right? And we're going to go a little bit above pride. The closer you get to 200, that's the closer you are to neutrality. When we get into neutrality, we're able to connect to our God self, or God, which is really the Christed energy within us. So tapping into that energy happens at neutrality. Well, before COVID, we were, at around 220 or so, and then we sank to 100. And so we've been all going through a purging of negative emotions through this whole time. 2023 was the vibration of war, 150. 2024 comes up to pride. So while we have set boundaries in 2023, we'll continue to set boundaries in 2024, really because we're coming to a place where we think we are correct to set those boundaries. Another vibrational change between 2023 and 2024 is that our approach to relationships in 2023 was at the vibration of fear. So we're literally scared of relationships, right? 2024, the vibration goes up for relationship. It actually goes to, it goes to 150, it jumps. Okay, so it's now relationships are conflict energy. So now you have the opportunity in 2024, which is really unique, to set boundaries in your relationships. And that's what's going to play into the energy of 2024, okay? This is why it's kind of exciting on an inner level. Now, before I go into the inner level, so before I go into the inner predictions, I'm going to first go over what's happening in the US. And this goes into politics and other aspects of our culture here in the US. So in the US for 2023, the chart of the new moon for that Lunar New Year was in the 8th house of change, of the unseen, and also the 8th house itself is the conflict house. So there was just so much conflict energy in 2023. And when we go into 2024, we see that we're shifting to the 7th house. Okay, and so the 7th house, the new moon, is the 7th house. It's with Mercury, the planet of communications and friendships, of our thinking mind, of our mentality, and also featuring in that house is Pluto, which I'm going to go over extensively. But in this new moon, we see that we're shifting from that 8th house conflict energy over to the relationship energy. So why is that so interesting? Now the vibration of relationships is going to be that of boundary setting and anger. So on a political scale, we're going to see that our allies are actually shifting and changing in 2024. And another reason it's shifting and changing, and the reason why it's allies, is because Mercury is the planet of friends, and it's all within this sign, and it's all in Aquarius. In addition, the reason why it's shifting is because Pluto's there, and Pluto is the planet of death and transformation. So this is just transforming our allies, our relationships, our foreign affairs are just like really like messing up and transforming and changing, and expect to have different allies show up for us. And to better understand this new moon, or this Lunar New Year, you have to understand the attributes of Aquarius and Pluto, because Pluto is a major agent of change. And the last sign that Pluto was in was Capricorn. And Pluto is in Capricorn since 2009, when Obama was inaugurated and when we had that huge recession. And in that sign, Pluto was tearing up and destructing capitalism, showing us the dark side of capitalism and how power hungry and greedy people can be in our structures. It was also tearing up the hierarchical structures, which look like a pyramid. So this is the sign of the, right? And so this crumbled. and Pluto as like a way of reducing the ego. And so what it is it's like our governments, which are Capricornian, they're fatherly, they're paternalistic. All those paternalistic structures were really like almost disemboweled and like brought before us. And now as we go from that stage since 2009, where the baloney was coming out, we're now in a stage where Pluto is about to move into Aquarius, where Plutonian energy is going to bring about massive changes in the Aquarian age. So Aquarius is the energy of the collective. So as we move from a hierarchical structure, we're moving to a structure where we need to consider everybody. In fact, this term en masse is like everywhere in the ether, in the diaspora, where people care about groups now. Well, we can embody the energy of Aquarius, and we really have been embodying the energy of Aquarius since Saturn went into Aquarius a few years ago. But now as Pluto comes in, this is a refining process that'll take a decade for us to really get Aquarius without the Aquarian ego. That's what Pluto's going to do for us. And so you're going to get, unfortunately, on the low vibe side, you are going to get this energy of wanting to control the masses through groupthink, because Pluto is still power dynamics and subjugation in its most toxic form, right? But on a higher level, as we transform this sign, Pluto's going to give us the ability to refine Aquarius to the point where we are going to start seeing over the next decade or so an evolution where we start to embody the better parts of Aquarius, because we lose our ego about groupthink. And so this Pluto will destroy any ideas that we had of thinking as a communist country or something like that, because really Aquarius is the sign of communes, right? But not necessarily communism, because Aquarius is the most rebellious of all of the zodiac signs. So it's an interesting dynamic. Aquarians want to be altruistic. They want to transform. They want to be mindful of nature and innovation and technology and these kinds of things. But they also are rebellious against the Capricornian top-down controls. So they're not going to allow for that. And especially we see with this Lunar New Year that with Mercury there, Mercury rules our thinking mind. It rules our communication. It rules our technology in a way, right? So the higher vibrational aspect of this is that we're going to see groundbreaking technologies come out. And in a lot of ways, these technologies, because also Aquarius is ruled by Uranus, which, it's responsible for like lightning and energy and things like that. So I do see us getting also Aquarius's waves because it's an air sign, and it's also literally 2 waves. These are air waves. So I see us having like scalar wave technology, and I see us particularly in the avenues of health, because in this chart I see Venus in Capricorn in the 6th house, which is public health. So, and then we also see Mars in that house. This is a very interesting dynamic that I'll go over a little bit more in depth, but masculine and feminine energy. But in the 6th house, that really reshapes our understanding of health and our work as well. So both our jobs and our healthcare are being reshaped, for this like decade or so. And it's going to be reshaped in an Aquarian way. So we are getting these massive upgrades in technology that are going to allow us to heal the body in ways that we couldn't even believe possible. And a lot of these modalities have actually already come out and they've been suppressed. But this year, because of this new year in Aquarius, this new moon in Aquarius, the tone is set that the masses need to prevail. Okay, so anything that comes out needs to be for the benefit of all. And so that high vibe means that we're going to have energy solutions. We don't need to just rely on the energy solutions given to us up until this point, like solar or nuclear or whatever. Although this will refine those processes. I see us actually having changes to transportation as well, because Mercury rules transportation as well as technology, and you know that because when it goes into retrograde, it causes so much havoc in those areas. But very interesting from the political standpoint, on the low vibe, is that we do see that the nations are having to rethink their allies, like the unstable power dynamics of like NATO and the UN and the wars that the US are in. We're now going to face open hostility for, because the 7th house is open enemies. So now you can see what your enemies are doing. And at this time, though, I have to say that Aquarius is ruled by Saturn, and Saturn in this chart is still in the 8th house, and the 8th house is still a house capable of deception, especially in Pisces. And Pisces is the sign that rules the government. And there with Neptune, which causes quite a bit of illusion. So Saturn in that house is transiting very slowly, and Saturn's going to be there until next year, like 2025. And as Saturn's in Pisces, it's asking us to be more truthful, but unfortunately, that's the higher vibe of Saturn. So the lower vibe is continuing to lie. So we're going to see a lot of still illusion, power grabs, lack of disclosure regarding the secret, the black ops and things like that and why our Pentagon can't balance the budget, like what are they spending that money on? Well, they're spending it on like black ops. And are we okay as Americans funding that? Well, the 8th house is also the seeking of change, to get rid of the garbage, to drain the swamp. That's why that's so popular, the draining of the swamp. Well, this is all possible, but in the worst timeline, they continue to just lie. Now, in the higher timelines, we're going to see that they can't keep lying. And a lot of this is because this is all happening in the 7th house. So for this year of 2024, up until the next Lunar New Year of 2025, you're going to see that open enemies. You're going to see who's a friend, who's not a friend, right? In terms of our foreign relations. In addition, like I said before, I see huge advancements in our labor market and in our healthcare. But the thing is that is a very slow moving development. And the low vibe of that is that first people will lose jobs and there will be losses in healthcare. In fact, in many ways, healthcare is being completely reshaped. It's being reshaped because the future of healthcare is energetic healing, wavelengths, scalar waves. I just saw this cool new device. It's called the Spooky 2, which is a reference to Albert Einstein's entanglement, saying that it's spooky action at a distance. But the Spooky 2 is a scalar wave device that is already out that allows you to amplify like a bottle of vitamin D and take it in an energetic form. So you don't have to take chemicals into your body. You can emulate the vibration of that. You can do all kinds of stuff that really my industry of pharmacy, because I'm a pharmacist, we've been very myopic and we've been completely hijacked, as was evident by our experience with COVID. And now there's all this new modalities for healing. I kind of mentioned this to my dad, who's a doctor, and he was just like, you don't know what you're talking about. But actually there are physicists and there are scientists who are experimenting with these new modalities, just waiting to share it with humanity. And the high vibe of that is that when they get shared, they're going to be shared with all. They're coming up with egalitarian solutions for all, not just solutions for one above another. Another really awesome consequence of Pluto coming into Aquarius is that we are really past the Capricornian energy of hoarding all the resources. And so what's going to happen is it's going to become really gauche and pretentious to have a bunch of money and like flaunt your money. Because in this chart and moving forward with Pluto doesn't really tolerate a lot of BS. There are still power dynamics at hand, but Pluto is definitely going to be reshaping the way we think about our ego. And by the time in a decade or so when Pluto is done with Aquarius, it's going to completely flip the power dynamic to the side of the regular citizen, because Saturn is the regular pleb. So that's happening. I think we're also going to see on the lower vibe, we're going to still continue to see wars and such and conflict. Another aspect to this is that in the 10th house, we see Jupiter. And Jupiter in the 10th is almost always about leadership. Now, during this whole time, I've had previous videos about Rahu, or the north node of the moon in Aries. So we have this desire for leadership, but we're not getting leaders, okay? And so now with Mars in this chart showcasing in the 6th house, it's proving to us that the leaders that we're seeking have legal problems, which would be Biden and Trump, that need to be overcome. And in fact, Mars here does allow for them to overcome the legal problems because Mars in Capricorn is exalted. So really their power will allow them to overcome some of these legal issues. But at the same time, you know, Venus is also in that house of Capricorn in the 6th house. And so Venus represents the feminine energy and it represents politics. And so would they be successful but have to give up some of the political clout that they have? That's a potential. In addition, because Jupiter's on the 10th cusp here, it shows that there is potential for leadership to emerge. And I do think, of course, that has to happen because we have to have a new president sworn in 2025. And so that's what this chart is showing, that we do get a new president. And, you know, I think largely these, both Biden and Trump will have to answer for their lies and their own corruption. And so they're going to have to they're being indicted, they're having to go through all these processes. And so this really does open up room for independent candidates. It also like breaks the masculine feminine divide, or the right and left. That's how I see this happening. There's like a break in the democracy. And really Aquarius likes democracy, but when Capricorn is divided, the powers that be are divided, it allows for potentially third-party candidates to become a real consideration for president, which is not a bad thing because we do need change here. And with the kicker is Uranus with Jupiter is going to, on that 10th house, is going to give us change. And kind of like remarkable, unpredictable changes. So I'm not actually sure we're going to get Trump or Biden, just so you know, because I just see this potential for large change in our governments. The other thing is this chart's ascendant or lagna is Leo. And so again, as we are learning about our foreign affairs and learning who's our friends and who's our enemies, it's more so that we are learning as a public about the power dynamics that are really going on, even behind the scenes. That's what I see. And Leo is about our self-expression. It's about our intellect. And so I do see a huge up-leveling of the intellect of the public that has been happening, but will continue to happen. Unfortunately, with our government still lying, we are going to have to fight for this. However, in Aquarius, we are equipped to fight for it because we do feel the sense of rebellion. And also because we're coming out of war energy into pride, and people do tend to assert themselves with pride. And so we are going to see that play out in the United States. Now, for us on an internal level, I want to give you guys a perspective on what's happening in terms of you. Okay, so for you, you are going to see yourself focus this year on self-expression and identity. Your identity, perhaps at odds with others, perhaps at odds with the groups. I actually see our collective really becoming more discerning. That's because with this new moon having Mercury right there and Pluto, we cannot afford to continue to make deals with friends and such in the same way that we had before. We actually have to preserve our identity while respecting the groups. And so I do see a lot of people changing their relationships with their affiliated groups. So whether that's right or left, whether that's this religion, that religion, or whether that's even in the context of their feelings kind of about their government, or whether they want to live in cities versus rural. There's a lot of changes, and I do see people continuing to want to ruralize, like go into the rural areas that they might have more freedom. Getting land, that kind of thing, is very possible in this chart. Now, at the same time, there are financial issues in this chart that do occur. And the type of financial issues that occur are with your daily finances. Again, I did mention, or did I mention on the global scale that there could be a cyber attack? That's one piece I missed. This is a big piece. Okay, so in 2024, the big menacing issue of 2024 is the possibility of a cyber attack on our banking system and on our electrical grid. So that is possible. That's the shadow side of Aquarius and Pluto, and with Mercury there, that affects our trade relations, our businesses. So there is a big jostling of what's been going on here. One other aspect of this that I do see is with Mars and Venus in the 6th house in Capricorn, the hierarchical structures of the medical system are also being exposed, changed. The structure of being able to tell doctors what to do and the World Health Organization telling the US what to do, that's actually coming up in conflict. When Mars and Venus are in one sign together, that's masculine and feminine at war with one another. So and the 6th house is a house of conflict as well. And so really I see that in combination with Ketu, or the South Node, still being in Libra, that's lawsuits. Now, if decisions were made by our government to follow the WHO over science and understanding of infectious disease, which is really what happened, this is the retribution for that. We are going to see that play out in 2024. And so that's kind of a victory. Now, part of the harm of that is that the 6th house is also acute disease. So much of the population is still suffering from acute disease because of the treatments they were given. But as this goes on, the lies are getting exposed. And so the confidence in government is severely eroded in 2024 in a way that makes it obvious to people who are not awakened yet that they need to awaken to what's truly happening. Now, that's exciting because it allows for us to change societally together in Aquarian ways, all of us together en masse. So this disruption is very necessary because there still is this energy of Saturn in the 7th degree in Pisces, early in Pisces, basically still lying and not owning up to what's been happening. They're going to want to lie about the hidden things. There's a hearing on UFOs or UAPs, and it's becoming pretty obvious that our government has been hiding money and spending it on, crash retrieval. And, the House is trying to get them to, this House and the Senate are trying to get them to read them into what's happening in these black ops that are not transparent. And they're actually still giving them a lot of pushback. So if we have a lot of black ops, we have a lot of secrecy that the military is not willing to expose to Congress, which is totally illegal, that means that whatever they're doing is criminal and or a cover-up. So why would they need to cover it up? Like, why won't they release the records of the JFK assassination fully? It's been like 70 plus years, And during this year, they're going to be continuing this energy, but with the population far more suspicious, still seeing the lies, seeing how the lies are affecting their daily life. It's the 6th house with Mars energy and Venus energy colliding, is basically our wisdom and our action. Our wisdom and our action is reshaping this daily life. So actually these lies are affecting our daily life, and to a point where people will have to wake up to this. The people who are going to wake up at this time. In addition to this, another aspect that is energetic of this chart is that Aquarius brings waves of energy, because this is air and electricity, right? Well, there's going to be, with this ascendant being in Leo, the Leo is ruled by the sun. The new moon in Aquarius energy gives the opportunity for us to have more solar radiation, actually. And the solar radiation are these solar flashes. We had a giant solar flash. I think it was like 12, 30, 31 or something like that. And that solar flash was record breaking. It was something like, we haven't seen a solar flash like that since 2006. And it can knock down the electrical grid. Well, we are having multiple solar flashes all year. Those are opportunities for us to purge our negative emotion and to come up higher in the scale. But what that does to lower vibrational people is it agitates them. And so everything is like kind of coming to a head in 2024. And this is really, because it is the 7th house, it is the year of making decisions, weighing your options and saying, I don't like what you're doing and I want to do something else and I want to be innovative with it. So that's the general feeling of how this is going to feel on a personal level. And so you will be wanting to change your friend groups. Okay, changes to friend groups is a thing. You'll be doing that to preserve your identity because this is a Leo rising and Leo's all about the identity. And how you fit within your groups is going to be changing on a personal level. And that's because a lot of the lies are being exposed. A lot of people's addictions are going to be exposed and people will have less tolerance for the unsavory corruption, even within their own friend groups. So that's exciting. Because when you let go of the negative, every time you let go of the negative this year, you're just going to be able to go higher and higher. So don't think of this as a bad thing. We have to purge these energies. We have to purge these friendships if we're going to come into a new era of better, more profound, deeper relationships. Why do you want these superficial, lying relationships anyway? That's what you got to think about this year. In addition, with Pluto ever more in Taurus, another aspect to this is how do we find stability in our daily lives? Because Taurus is ruled by Venus. So all year we're going to be changing the way we feed ourselves in our daily lives as it relates to health and getting rid of the garbage and also our routines and such. There's going to be a kind of a warring between wanting to rest and wanting to do things all year. But what that does is it gives us ultimately balance, wisdom, stability, and really grows the tangible assets. It's also like quite a lot of opportunity to grow in your stability of your career, but that's in the face of some real upheaval in the economic systems. Okay, and so we will now go on to the prediction as it relates to the world as opposed to the US. And I'm just going to quickly go over the differences here because this video has gone on quite a long time. Now, the world predictions are done via Yamakoti, which is a point the ancients used to predict world events. It's like the center of the world, you could say. And the interesting thing about this chart is that it's an Aries rising chart, which is a very indicative of war energy still. It's sad. But in particularly, you will see that Mars, which rules Aries, is in the 10th house. And it's with Venus, because I already talked about the fact that they're together, that masculine and feminine energy. So all year long, as people are trying to assert themselves in unhealthy ways because the North Node is also in Aries, and it makes us really crave leadership but not have that divine leadership. All year, we're actually trying to get rid of obstacles to true leadership. And the way that that's happening on a world scale is actually getting rid of leaders on the world scale. So some of these leaders are just going to basically die this year. That's what I'm predicting. And that's going to be in the politics because Venus is there. So some of these leaders are going to die because Capricorn is ruled by Saturn. Saturn's in the 12th house in this chart, and the 12th house is death of government, right? So there's literally death of governments happening on the world scale. You know, the destruction of governments. Also because Mars that rules Aries is right next to Venus, which is politicians. So some of the politicians, the political leaders are going to pass away this year. And I look at that as the old guard passing away. So we might see the death of, we could see the death of Netanyahu, we could see the death of Putin, we could see the death of some of the older leaders, Biden, even potentially Trump, although he looks more vigorous, just from a energy standpoint. And on this scale, the reason for this upheaval, this change, is the die-off needs to happen. We need change in our political systems and our leadership. And that is what this year is heralding for the world. In addition, the actual new moon is occurring, the new opportunity is occurring in the 11th house. And so that does mean that the groups, the associations, the networks that we have are drastically changing, because again, I went over the fact that Pluto's there, Mercury's there, our technologies are changing on a worldwide scale. Now, a lot of what we see with the die-off of all these older leaders or more corrupt leaders is that we're seeing the die-off happen to get rid of the corruption element in the world. So that's interesting because these powers are old. They've been in power a long time, and they're actually they're causing war. They're causing problems. And Mars will do a lot of destruction, but in the end, what it will do is it will kill, but it will also change. It will give the world drastic changes. And at the same time, because the new moon is in this 11th house. Now, the 11th house is still a conflictual house. There's just so much more conflict on the global scale than we see in the US right now. We could also see definite cyber attacks hit like the world scale in 2024. In fact, there was a movie made by the Obamas, directed by the Obamas, which predicted a cyber attack on, like, I think September the 17th of this year. Which, by the way, how creepy is that? That they're allowed to make a movie about the end of the world? That alone, from a former president, is just so sick. You know, it kind of just exposes how in many ways we were fooled by these leaders. The cool thing about this chart, though, is that Saturn is in the 12th house. So this is a completion cycle where Saturn is getting rid of the garbage in our governments in this cycle. And so I know that's a kind of scary timeline, and I know that people are going to be dealing with that. On the world scale, because Saturn is in the 12th, there's a lot of fear and mental health issues as well. So I just want to put it out there that while we see this playing out on the world scale, that we have to remember that this lowest timeline is not necessarily what we're going to experience personally. And the more that you focus on the good and manifesting the better and higher timelines, you're not necessarily going to experience this low vibe In fact, you're more apt to experience if you are doing your inner work, you're more apt to experience an expansion in your income, believe it or not, with new opportunities there. Jupiter's in the second in this world chart on a world scale. You're going to see that actually happening in the areas of healing, really like in truthful ways, that there's possibilities in areas that benefit all people, not just the powers that were. And in addition, you're going to be seeing like massive changes to the way that you go about your external life, your reputation. And in some ways, you're going to have to let go of your reputation as a citizen of the world, because that's all changing. All the groups you affiliate are changing. Massive, massive changes. You know, and in some ways, you're letting go of your religion, because Saturn in Pisces is the religious age. So that's the Jesus fish, the two fish. And so you're letting go of that era, because as Saturn goes through, it like completely like trashes that sign. It makes you let go of stuff that doesn't serve your healing, your mental wellness. So in a way, we kind of lose our religion globally in that year. And so there's like a lot of ways in which we no longer want to hang out with the same religious groups or the same faith groups and the same circles, which, you know, has been happening, but I feel like there's just more conflict in the sense of your reputation as a part of the group holistically on Earth. So what group are you going to be in? Are you team humanity, or are you team death cult that is trying to reduce the population by 80%? And if you're not aware that that's happening, you will become aware in 2024. The lines are going to be drawn in your personal life and on a global scale. So you will have to face up, and many people who were previously unawakened will awake this year. And thank goodness, just in time for us to reshape a new society, because Pluto is just begging us to let go of our ego and see what's before us. See the toxicity, transform the toxicity within our groups, within our lives. Maybe we are more into nature. Maybe we're more rural. Maybe we're more rebellious. All of these possibilities are available for you in 2024 as a citizen of this earth. So strap in, but also recognize that we still need to preserve what we want, because in the global scale, we're going to be cutting ties with people and relationships that don't serve us in a major way. And so this is a divergence into the Aquarian age of us really embracing our individuality, but respecting others. I get my piece of the pie, but actually I respect your piece of the pie, instead of a small portion of the population receiving all of the pie and telling us that you will own nothing and you will be happy. So all of that is kind of breaking in a sense. We are seeing disruptions to the banking system, and those disruptions could come in the form of a cyber attack. They could come in the form of disruptive banking technologies and innovation that really needs to happen, because like carrying a pouch of gold is also not great, or carrying cash is not great. So there needs to be solutions, but those solutions need to be largely innovative. That energy is available for us this year. Ultimately, though, from the people of the world perspective, this is about us selecting new friendships, It's about us defining who we are and what we want versus the groups we're in. And that may mean that we all have to consider what affiliations we have to right, left, to different political parties in particular. And that's going to change our reputation on a personal level. Our external reality is going to shift if it hasn't already. So this is actually a global invitation for people to step into awakening and ascension if they haven't already. And this will be at the expense of your reputation, and even you're going to come off as being brash and conflictual in a lot of ways. But really, this chart of the global citizen on a personal scale is about society moving towards away from appeasing people, away from codependency, and more towards like what we truly want. And in a lot of ways, justice for the group is happening on a world scale. So the powers that be can't hang on in the way that they have been. And so we're going to see the people of the world. Yes, low vibrationally, you could experience mental health issues. Saturn's in the 12th. But high vibrationally, we're going to see Saturn give us the opportunity to spiritualize and gain spiritual healing and change and close out cycles that will ultimately, for our mental health, we're going to be letting go of friends that don't serve us, that aren't on the same page as us, really don't respect what we want within our relationships and our friendships on a global scale. So what does that sound like to you? That actually sounds a lot like the process of awakening. I think there's going to be far more people awakened in 2024 than we even have seen in like 2023. People are awakening big time. And there's nothing that can stop that. Even the wars, even the conflicts, it's not what the people want, because what the people, the common person wants is represented by Saturn, and Saturn's in the 12th house in Pisces. And so people want peace. Truly deep down, they want peace for everybody. That's what they're looking for. And keep in mind, Neptune is there. And even though there's like lies and deceptions within our governments, that is all, a lot of that is being changed on the global scale. And Neptune is there saying we want peace, because Neptune is all about peace and dreams and idealism. And when Saturn is there, it's the type of idealism that is practical. Like, hey, we can't have a giant cabal take over our world. We're not for that. And so lastly, I just want to say that this year is fundamentally about decisions and wisdom, really. The wisdom of knowing what you can't or can't take, right? And so I would implore you to continue to define who you are and what you want, to continue to be your true self and to step into your identity, because if you do that, you can really reshape your existence and what you see manifest into the world, and you don't have to be beholden to the darkest timeline. Yeah, I'm not going to be shy about telling you guys what that darkest timeline is, but I also believe that we can usher in a new age, a golden age. An Aquarian age is a golden age. Could it be also scary if you go down the darkest timelines of like the AI, irresponsible AI? Yeah. Absolutely. But is there a way to deal with AI where it's ethical? Yes. And all the solutions are available. Now, which direction it goes is entirely up to you. You have free will. You can choose the higher timelines. You can choose what you identify with. Remember that what you resist persists. So in this year where there's still quite a bit of conflict in the collective, we have to center ourselves, ground ourselves, and make sure that we understand that we don't want to continue fighting within us because we're going to generate a conflictual society. In fact, there are solutions that can come out of Aquarius, which are brilliant, beautiful solutions that we have access to that we should be implementing. So, I invite you to come along. I invite you to make the changes you need to make this year, understanding what's on the map. This should be a huge opportunity for you to transform your life and to usher in a new era for society, for you, for your friendships, for your relationships. And I just wish you well for this year. Thank you so much and take care. Bye-bye.